Not since Ned Kelly has an Australian outlaw captivated the public fascination quite like Mark Chopper Read. Born in Melbourne in 1954 to an ex-army father and a devoutly religious mother, Chopper spent his first 5 years behind the sterile walls of a children's home. Reunited with his parents, the boy quickly learned that life could be unforgiving. At school he was bullied, and at home he was misunderstood. According to some sources, it was in second grade that a classmate, inspired by a comic, nicknamed him Chopper, an innocent joke that, in hindsight, was chillingly a prediction of the man that he would become. "Where would I be today if they'd nicknamed me Fluffy?" he laughed decades later. By the time he was 14, Chopper had become a ward of the state, shipped through psychiatric institutions where he endured electric shock treatments that would sear his fragile mind. By his mid-teens, he had mastered violence and survival, leading street gangs and carving out a reputation as one of Melbourne's most feared standover men. Chopper's rise through the criminal underworld followed a simple logic. The darker the deeds, the deeper the pockets. He targeted drug dealers. No moral high ground, he insisted, just practical business, reasoning that they had large sums of cash but could not report the crime to the police. He became known around the Melbourne underworld as the criminal that stole from criminals, but alas, he was regularly arrested. In the mid-1970s, Chopper attempted to free a member of his gang by kidnapping a judge, and he was sentenced to 17 years in Pentridge Prison. Inside, he became involved in prison gang wars, and it soon became unsafe for Chopper. His demands for a transfer to a safer wing were refused, so he turned to the extreme, asking an inmate to cut off both his ears so that he'd be moved for medical care. "Believe me," he later wrote, "ears off equals transfer. It works." Some sources say that this was the event that gave him the nickname Chopper, but others say it was due to him severing rivals' toes with bolt cutters. Not long after this event, Chopper's own gang saw him as a liability in the escalation of the prison gang wars, so they stabbed him repeatedly. Chopper survived the attack, but lost a large amount of his bowel and intestine. Chopper was a loner in prison, with former prison chaplain Peter Norden saying that no one trusted him because he was unpredictable. He said that when Chopper came out of his cell, people would give him a 3-metre berth. Chopper claimed to have only spent 13 months out of jail between the ages of 20 and 38 years old. He learned to read and write in jail, and in 1990 he began corresponding with Melbourne crime reporter John Sylvester. In 1991, John and his colleague Andrew Rule compiled and edited these letters into the book Chopper from the Inside, The Confessions of Mark Brandon Read, a raw and unflinching confessional that stormed the bestseller lists, selling over 200,000 copies. John later shared, "There is no doubt that some of Read's stories are embellished, polished, or in some cases stolen, but there is also no doubt that through the 1970s and 80s, he was one of the most dangerous men in Australia." Due to his instant success, Chopper produced approximately 1 book a year for the next decade, initially writing autobiographical stories, but then turned to crime fiction, and then children's stories. Chopper was still in maximum security prison during his success as an author, and a fan, Mary Ann Hodge, began to visit him. They married in 1995, and 3 years later, he was released from jail. The couple moved to Tasmania and had a son, Charlie. Chopper later wrote of this experience, "Fatherhood changed me. I reckon I became a human being at 45 when I saw my first boy born. That's the moment I joined the human race." Unfortunately, Chopper and Mary Ann divorced soon after, in 2001, Chopper confessing that he married her on legal advice to attempt to get out of jail. Mary Ann later stated that Chopper regularly had violent mood swings fueled by alcohol and drugs. In the year 2000, the film Chopper was released. Eric Bana's terrifyingly magnetic portrayal turned Chopper into a cult hero overnight, and suddenly he was more than a crime boss. He was a public figure, headlining sold-out tours, writing columns for FHM and Nuts, and even releasing a rap album, Interview with a Madman. Chopper liked to boast that he had killed 19 people and attempted the murder of 11 others, but he also admitted that he would never let the truth get in the way of a good yarn. Later confessing, "Look, honestly, I haven't killed that many people, probably about 4 or 7, depending on how you look at it." Although he was now a highly successful public figure, his earnings were swallowed by gambling debts and legal penalties, and then an amendment to the proceeds of crime legislation made it so he could not benefit financially from his crimes, so he donated all of his earnings to the Royal Children's Hospital. In 2003, Chopper married his longtime friend Margaret Casser, and their son Roy was born the next year. He recalled, "When I was 50, I saw my second boy born. I became a fully paid up member of the human race. I have no regrets, but those moments told me what I should have been, a good human being." In 2007, Chopper declared himself bankrupt due to his gambling addiction, and then, later that year, he announced that he had hepatitis C. He had recently received cancer treatment for liver cancer and said that he would not be applying for a liver transplant that might save his life. Chopper Read had outlived his legend. He faced mortality with the same grim humour that had fueled his life. He died in 2013, leaving behind a legacy as jagged and unpredictable as the man himself, a brutal entertainer, a notorious gangster, and, however reluctantly, an icon of Australian folklore.